Hey Curators, welcome back for episode 34 of the Yarn Curator podcast. My name is Naomi and welcome to my channel where we talk about all things knitting related. If you're a new viewer, welcome. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. It's great to have all y'all here. And yeah, we will jump right in. It's been a while since I last recorded. I'm just doing it when I feel like it right now since the mojo is a bit touch and go still, but hey, here we are. I was thinking about recording all day yesterday, and so I decided to sit down and do it. Albeit a few hours delayed. I got very distracted this morning with a audiobook and kind of just sinking my teeth into a mindless story. As you guys can tell, there is a finished object in the room. Woo woo! So when I last spoke to you guys 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was just working on the last sleeve of this pattern, which is the Cardigan number 4 by Knitting for Olive, I believe. If not, I'll put the name. No, it is Cardigan number 4 by My Favorite Things is the name of the knitwear company. I apologize, there's a text coming in on my phone from an old coworker, just checking in. I will talk to her when I finish filming. Anyways, I knit this out of Brooklyn Tweed on their Arbor base. Veil. This is not the colorway I used. I just have more in my stash. So I knit this out of some Brooklyn Tweed on the Veil base. It is 100% Rambouillet, and the colorway was called Barberry. And I held this double, and then I also held it with a strand of the Farmer's Daughter on her Mighty Mohair base. And I don't remember the name of the colorway for that, but it gives this a lovely brownish purple red. There's been some debate between my sister Zoe, who is Felicity Yarn Studio, and between her and my mom and myself of whether or not it's mauve, puce, rose gold, or some combination of all of those colors. Who knows? All I know is I freaking love this cardigan. It is so cozy and soft, and it's like wearing a hug from a sheep. If sheep could hug you, this is how they would hug you in cardigan form. So I will stand up real quick and maybe I'll overlay some photos or some video of me wearing this. Heyo. So here it is. It's this lovely, it's not a true brioche or a true fisherman's rib. I think it's called like a half fisherman's rib or something like that. Let's move the chair back. You guys get the full effect. Right. So yeah, it's got this great V-neck and big balloon sleeves, and yeah, I am feeling it. It is super cute and cozy and cuddly and all of that good stuff. So now that my floating headless form is not talking to you, have a few thoughts about this pattern that I did not write down. Of course, on the whole, I really enjoyed knitting this. It was kind of a notch above mindless knitting. You had to pay attention, but it's just a repetitive stitch pattern. So once you got the flow of it, no big deal. The designer, I believe, is Danish. And so the way things were worded were a little confusing. So there were parts of the pattern where you kind of had to stop and figure out what she was telling you to do. But other than that, not too bad. I would say it is definitely an intermediate pattern. If you're a novice, I would not suggest attempting this for your first garment knit, but if you've made a few garments or a few sweaters before, you're familiar with this stitch, you should be good to go. And the other thing is it has an applied button band. I have not yet gone back and added in the button loops and buttons because I'm fine with it just kind of being a big cozy throw-on thing. I often don't button or close cardigans, so yeah. But it's been perfect. I've slow down, Naomi. It has been perfect for what I wanted it for, which was something to take into work and just wear while I sit on my desk, and then I can kind of shirk it off and go use the bathroom or whatever I need to do. This is probably oversharing, but in my workplace, I have to physically go out. I have to leave my office, physically go outside, walk around a building to another building to use the bathroom. There's no staff bathroom where my office is. It's shared with the general public. And so because I am in Florida, I would normally wear something like this into work, like what I have on underneath. And so when it's 90 degrees outside, I don't want to wear a giant mohair sweater outside. I do have plans to make another kind of mohair cardigan by Knitting for Olive. I've swatched for it. I just need to cast it on, which maybe I'll do soon. We'll see. So next up is whips, or works in progress. And I only have two. As I said, the Mojo's Touch and Go. And I keep trying to do different things to try and reinvigorate things. And so I actually signed up for a test knit. Zoe did this not too long ago and it seemed to work for her. So I was like, give it a try. What works for one might work for another. Who the hell knows? So I signed up for a test knit of Birkin, which is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter. It's already a released pattern by her, but a lot of the feedback she's heard on this particular knit is that the fit doesn't quite work along the yoke, that it causes a lot of bunching and things along those lines. So she's rewritten the pattern to try and get a better fit. And from when I've read the test thread, that previously the pattern is written so it only increased before and after the color work section, whereas it is rewritten now, the increases are worked throughout the color work section, which is pretty standard to most of the yoked patterns that I've worked on in the past. So yeah, I struggled with this. I'm not even gonna lie. And it's not even the knitting that I struggled with. It is the color choice for the yarn for this pattern. So I had originally envisioned this kind of like beautiful monochrome palette that would be like, the base is this like dusty lavender light purple color. And I had this mini set that I picked up at EYF when we went a few years ago that I've been saving for like the perfect project. And it's these like reds and pinks and kind of pink purples that kind of blurs that line. And so I was going to use that for the color work in the yoke. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. These minis, they'll be great. Started knitting it. I'm like, the first color, loved. Working the second color and I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know how I'm feeling about this, but you know what? I'm just gonna keep going. I'm neurotically texting Zoe, like, do I frog it? Do I keep it? Do I, she's like, I think it looks good. So I set it down. I'm like, you know what? Let me steam block what I've done so far so I can get a better idea of how it actually looks. Because color work is always hard for me while I'm working it because, everything's kind of still bunched up and you don't get the full effect of what it looks like together. So anyways, I steam block it and I'm like, you know what? I like it. It's good. I'm going to keep going. I work half of the chart, and at this point, the way Birkin is written is you can either do it in a 2-color version or you can there's 4 contrast colors, and most of the rows you're knitting with 3 colors at the same time. So it's pretty involved. So I've been doing it where I'm like carrying 3 yarns at the same time. I get halfway through and I'm like, oh my God, this is intense and it's taking forever. And I am like ready to rip my hair out because all the floats you gotta catch and yada, yada, yada. And it's like big and bulky and I'm already not like sold on this color combination. And I weighed one of my mini skeins and they were each 20-gram minis, and half of I was gonna have to mirror what I just did. And I only had 6 grams left. And like these minis are not things that I can just be like, okay, I'm gonna go online and buy more. No, they're from a German-based dyer who lives in Germany. They're like not repeatable colorways. So it's like, oh, okay. I'm already on the fence about this. Why don't we just go ahead and rip it back and just rip the Band-Aid off, be done with it. We'll decide on another contrast color. It's fine. It's fine. So then I neurotically proceed to text Zoe over the next 2 days a variety of photographs of different color, yarn combinations, etc. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I have this Zauber ball that I was thinking about knitting something out of, just super basic. And I had pulled it out just so I could have like basic mindless knitting on my needles. I was like, you know what? These might work together. Yeah, that's totally great. Great combination. But meanwhile, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, that lavender and light pink is really gonna blend in with this Tweedy base. But I'm like, you know what? Allay your fears, just knit a few rows, see how it goes. I start knitting it. I get through 10 or so rows and I'm like, you can't even tell I'm doing color work right now. Rip it out again. And then I'm like, okay, I have this skein of yarn, which is from Fully Spun. You know what? Let's go for it. Start knitting with it, same thing. You can barely tell. And I'm knitting with this right now, so it's a lot lighter towards the start of the skein. This probably would have worked, but I just was not feeling it. Ripped it out again. I've had salt and pepper going through my head every time I think about this knit. You know, push it real good. But instead in my mind, I've been going, rip it real good. Bum, 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 rip it real good. So yeah, you're welcome. You're gonna have that stuck in your head now, like I have for the last week and a half. So at this point, Zoe's just like, you know what you need to do? You just need to go to the yarn shop, go buy something, just go get something different, maybe change your main color and move on. Maybe this just is not the right yarn combination for your vision. And the problem with going to the yarn shop is the one that is like stupidly close to my house, like probably 2 or 3 miles from my house. Their operating hours are the exact same hours of my work schedule. So they are open Tuesday through Saturdays from like 9 to 4. Guess who works Tuesday through Saturday from 8 to 4:30? This girl. And so they might as well not exist to me unless I have a day off when I can go there. And so the other option is to drive to south of me to the other yarn store, which is Stash St. Pete, which is a lovely yarn shop, but they're small and they have a smaller selection. And I kind of already browsed their online site and wasn't really seeing anything that spoke to me for this project. And so I was like, man, it's just not working. So I'm like wallowing, trying to figure out what to do, when on Friday evening of last week, I'm like, Naomi, you're a freaking idiot. You have 2 spinning wheels. You can make yarn. You can literally make the contrast color that you need for this project. The light bulb finally went off. Bing! There it was. Oh my God. I don't know why I didn't think of spinning as an option. Probably because the idea of like also spinning a yarn in the time crunch allotted, which is a really generous time frame for this knit, just didn't seem, I don't know, maybe it's part of the mental block I've been experiencing anyway. So I went into my yarn stash, looked, and like this one braid photo here jumped out at me and I spun it. So the braid of yarn, so the braid of yarn is from a dyer. I have shown off her yarn or her fiber before, called Apothecary, and this is 100% merino wool. The colorway I used is called Late frost. As you can see from when I showed you this knit like 10 minutes ago, after word vomiting everywhere, just so much. You can see it's knit up in there, but I will show you the little bit of ball that's left. All right. So for this, I have used, or I did a traditional 3-ply. Oh, it doesn't want to focus. I'll put in video footage. So for this, I did a traditional 3-ply yarn, and I kind of tried to keep it where big blocks of color would be together, because, well, I kind of did a weird fractal. I divided into thirds, and I was kind of an idiot in how I divided it into thirds. So I divided it in half, and then in my brain, because I decided to start spinning this as soon as I remembered I know how to spin yarn. At this point, it was like 9:30 at night, and so I went ahead and divided the braid in half, and then I divided each of those halves into half, and I was like, yes, that is totally how fractions work. That is an even third of yarn across each one. No, half and half is half, and then those divided down in half is 25%. So I had 25, 25, 50 is how I had actually divided it. Told you guys, math is not my strong suit, but I did not realize that I had gravely miscalculated that division until I was almost done spinning all 3 bobbins, which I then, luckily the one that I had the 2 quarters from, I had set aside, and I was going to spin that last. So I just divided that down some, and then I respun the first 2 bobbins with that additional little extra bit of fiber. But while I was spinning, I really tried to preserve each color block as I came to it. I tried not to strip down the color too thick because I wanted to maintain the darker portions of color in this braid. That way I could get some nice contrast on the color work portion of the yoke. In hindsight, I wish I would have completely broken the braid up and clumped each section of color together. And I could have really controlled those color transitions, but once again, I was not thinking at 9:30 or so at night when I decided to start this spin, because I was just frazzled for whatever reason, just totally frazzled. So I actually stayed up till almost midnight that first night spinning the first bobbin, and then I power spun on Saturday after I got home from work, and Sunday morning I was plying together. Sunday evening I had, so Sunday morning I soaked and snapped and all that stuff for the twist, and by that night I was sitting down and knitting with this yarn. So speed, it's like I went through, not Tour de Fleece, what's it in the fall that people do where you compete over a weekend to see how much you can spin? Spinzilla. Ha! So it reminded me of Spinzilla, which is kind of like power spinning. And so, yeah, that is what it turned out. It's really pretty in my opinion, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. So I have spent the last week or so going back through and re-knitting the yoke. So that is what that looks like. I like that it's still a low contrast, and I think the flower portions will be a lot more recognizable once it is blocked. I just went ahead and did a 2-color version of the knit, and in here there are also bobbles throughout, but I am currently on a break from doing any bobble knitting because I still have my stone crop on the needles, and I am about to start a bobble section on that whenever I pick it up again, and so I'm kind of bobbled out for a while. Stone crop is using the bobble reserve that I have allocated for last year and this year most likely. I do not see bobbling in my future for a while after I finish that knit. Bobble Bonanza. So I have worked the chart. I put this on a really long cable the other day, right before working the last color work section down here at the bottom, this kind of last viney portion, and it fit really well kind of over my shoulders and everything. I haven't divided for the sleeves yet. There were 2 more increase rows within that last chart that I worked. I'm a little worried it's actually going to be too big because the size I am testing is the 4th size, which is a 44-inch bust, which should give me about 2 inches of ease. And I was just looking at the pattern, and there is another increase row for the next row before you divide for your sleeves. And so I'm kind of like, I might omit that. We'll see. I don't know. I'll probably work it because I don't want to think, and sometimes following the directions as they're written is easier than trying to change the design. Shocker. It's almost like a designer designed it to work with stitch counts and things along those lines. My gauge is bang on, so maybe I should just trust the process. Crazy thought. We'll see. But overall, I'm pleased with it. And for the base, I didn't say this, for the base of this sweater, I am using more Brooklyn tweed. This is the Loft base. It is a Targhee Columbia wool blend. It does not give the breakdown of percentages, but Targhee is really soft. It's got a similar micron count to Merino. And as you can see, it is this gray lavender base with, excuse me, hints of pink throughout, and purples and etc. So I'm really pleased with this. I am ready to divide my sleeves. I need to slow down and talk slower. So with this yarn, you guys, when I finished it, I don't know if you remember the movie Castaway, but there's a scene where Tom Hanks, when he first makes fire, he's like, "Fire! I made fire! Fire!" That's the way I felt after this yarn. It was like, I made yarn! Yarn! I made yarn! I can make yarn! That's how I felt when I finished this. When I remembered I know how to make yarn. And I could have solved my problem a week earlier. So I did mention that I have started knitting with this ball of yarn. As I mentioned, this is from Fully Spun. The colorway is called Pop the Champagne, and yeah, it's really fun. It goes from like a peachy blue all the way through to this dark navy, and then it goes to a lighter kind of orange pink color in the middle. This ball of yarn was just looking at me, and I was like, "Hey, please knit me." So here we are. Shocker of shockers, cast on socks. I really just wanted stockinette stitch, kind of in the round, and this seemed like the easiest solution. The last few weeks at work, we have been watching like 2-hour movies during our staff meeting, and they're not movies like James Bond. They're like, this is how you respond to a disaster when a hurricane strikes or a fire strikes, or this is how you can plan to respond to a disaster. Here's how you should write forms, that sort of thing. Really engaging, intriguing subject matter. And I have had nothing on my needles to keep my hands busy while watching incredibly dry videos. And once a year we review these videos, so it's not even like it's a new video. It is the same video over and over and over again, and there's 5 in this series. So for 5 weeks now we have been watching the same videos as last year. Anyways, So I cast these on to just have something to keep my hands engaged while I am working. As I said, they kind of, you'll see they make it gradiates the color on its own. And so this is what initially was at the start of my sweater, kind of around to here. And it just was not enough contrast. I think at the end of the day, it would have been fine, but I just wasn't feeling it. So these are 64 stitches cast on US size zeros. I am just knitting a long tube until I feel like ending, and then I will knit a second one to match with an afterthought heel. I still don't consider myself a sock knitter, but I really just wanted something kind of bland and boring and easy and mindless. And especially since my brain was really getting taxed with Birkin and I was getting really frustrated that I was not making visible progress on anything that I was making, this is the result. And then in addition to that, I have been doing some spinning. I am still getting to know and falling in love with my electric eel wheel 6. I think I've decided her name will be Little Kiki. And yeah, so when I first got her in my unboxing video, I spun up some silk merino Rolex that I have in my stash. And so since the last time I have filmed, I plied those together into a 3-ply. I think it's about a DK weight. And I did this woolen spun long draw from the Rolex, and it's just really soft and squishy, and I'm really proud. Normally I tend to overspin my yarn, but this is like perfectly balanced, and I haven't spun a really balanced yarn in a long time. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the results of my spinning that I'm getting on the electric wheel. I almost think I'm getting better results than what I've been doing on my flat iron for years now. So I feel bad because it's just kind of sitting in the corner, staring at me with its little reindeer face, unused since January. But yeah, really pleased with that. I don't have the yardage in front of me right now. I know I wrote it down. I want to say it's about 250 yards. Good job, Naomi. I just had it in my brain like 2 weeks ago when I did it. This is a problem with spinning. If you don't immediately write down your numbers, you don't remember them. So in addition to the yarn I spun for my Birkin, I have continued to work through the yarn that I pulled out to spin for Spinuary, which is a little spin along I was doing with Zoe and Gemma of Gemma B Makes, which the idea was just to spin every day in January. And I had pulled out 5 skeins of yarn from Wound Up Fiber Arts with the intention of spinning for a faded sweater. And then now I'm thinking I might do a Vertices Unite out of it, but I am on the 3rd braid of fiber for that spin. This colorway was her special edition Christmas colorway. It's called Sugar Plum Fairies. Here's what the fiber looks like. It's got some deep purples and reddish purples, as well as flashes of kind of a yellowy gold. So that is that. Here is what it looks like on the bobbin, and hopefully that is coming through. So I really like it. The other day we did a little book club with my mom and my aunts and my sister, and so we all got together to talk about this book we all read. And while we were chatting, I was spinning up the second bobbin. I'm really pleased with the wheel, really pleased with how it handles. I will probably have this second bobbin done by the end of the week, and hopefully everything plied together. And I can kind of lay out the 3 skeins I have done so far for this project, which leaves just two to go. So I am excited to have a project that I am spinning for again. Other than that, that's all I've been working on. That's all I've been making. Nothing too exciting. Because I've just been fighting figuring out troubleshooting Birkin, but that is soon going to be at a rightfully mindless pace. And I'm really excited for that because I can power through some stockinette on the couch in the evenings. So that'll be great. And then the other thing is I just don't know what I want to make next. I'm kind of at a loss for what I want to make. So if you guys have favorite things, list them down below. I'd love to see some of your favorite projects that you like to work on or other creative endeavors. I have not touched my loom for probably about 3 or 4 weeks now because you guys know what I just told you. And so I do want to pull that out and keep working on the project I worked up for that. And hopefully once I power through a little more of this test knit, I'll be able to circle back to the loom. Other than that, I have just been reading really cheesy like chitlit, which I wish there's a better term for it because it's just fun and mindless and escapism, and it's kind of what I need. The other weekend I binged watched the old BBC series Pride and Prejudice because every now and then that just hits the spot. And yeah, I got my vaccine and all that good stuff, so I am just preparing for it to be dehydration season. So yeah, it is the time of year in which fighting dehydration is a constant battle. I actually had to call out of work last week because I had such a bad migraine from being so dehydrated that I just sat at home and slammed a Pedialyte all day. Although drinking a Pedialyte all day doesn't exactly count as slamming it. So anyways, I think on that note, I am going to wrap everything up. If you guys enjoyed today's episode, feel free to leave a comment down below, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed, consider hitting that button. I'd love to have you be an active part of this community. Ooh, who's funny? Not me. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoy whatever you're making or crafting and brings you joy. I'll talk to you later. Bye.